Hello everyone, I am Dylan from All You Can Board, and today Carlo and I are going to be previewing and giving you our thoughts on a brand new game from Flatout Games that combines the beautiful artwork of Beth Sobel with the puzzly spatial gameplay that you may have seen popularized by another Flatout Games release, Calico, or a game called Overboss, which was actually designed by two of the designers of the game we're looking at today, which is Verdant. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that I am a big fan of the MCU. Now, that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with this game and why are you bringing this up? Well, excellent question, mystery viewer, and that is because Verdant, I am here to subtly confirm, even though I have no confirmation whatsoever on this, that this game actually takes place in what I like to call the FGU, which is the Flatout Games universe. And I know that because if you look right here on the cover, there is a cat that bears a striking similarity to the one found on the Calico box cover, as well as the fact that there's a quilt here, which is a whole other tie-in. This is very exciting for multiple reasons because it means that future releases from Flatout Games may also tie in, and we're going to get some grand Flatout Games universe that ties all the releases together. So I am very pumped about that. I think that's the most exciting thing that I want to mention. But enough of my brazen speculation. We are here to talk about Verdant. Now, the way this is going to work is that I'm going to break down a little bit of an overview, like light tutorial on how Verdant plays and what you can expect from it. This won't be a full how to play. That's something we may produce when Verdant is actually hitting full release, because right now no one has it in their hands to really put it to use. I just want to give you an idea of what this game is, how it plays, so that you can make the decision on whether or not to back it. After I've gone over that brief overview of the rules, Carlo's going to take over and he's going to give you our full thoughts on this game after we spent time about a few weeks now with the prototype version and everything we've thought about it and where we land on it. So without further ado, let's jump into the overview of the rules of Verdant. In Verdant, there will be two rows of cards, a row of plant cards and a row of room cards. Between each set of opposite cards will be a small token. On your turn, you will select a token and one card from either side of it, either a room or a plant. Whichever card you do not select will gain a green thumb token. These tokens will now be available for players on future turns to claim if they select that particular card with the token. Green thumbs can be cashed in 2 at a time to use special actions. After you've selected your card, you will add it to your home. Your home is a 5x3 grid that you are creating in front of you. You will start the game with 2 cards in it, 1 room and 1 plant. When adding new cards to your grid, you may never add a plant next to a plant or a room next to a room. Consider this when planning out your grid. Cards must also be placed orthogonally adjacent to at least one pre-existing card. They also cannot be rotated. The idea here is to try to place specific plant types next to rooms that want to be next to those plant types. You will score additional points at the end of the game if you achieve this. Next, you're going to check lighting conditions. On each room card, you'll notice that each side has a lighting condition, either full sun, semi-shade, or shade. For the card you place, check if the light condition on it matches the light condition on the cards next to it. If any plants are lit this way, add a verdancy token to that plant. Next, place the item token you claimed. If it is a furniture token, place it into a room in your home. You want to try and match colors here. As well, you want to try and have as many unique types of furniture tokens at the end as possible. If it is a nurture item, you may cash it in to add additional verdancy to plants. There are 3 types of nurture items and they each enhance your verdancy in different ways. If you do not want to use your item token yet, you can store exactly 1 token in your storage space on your personal card for later. Next, for step 5, check if you completed any plants. Plants all have verdancy values on them. If you ever reach the max verdancy value listed on a plant, you complete it. Remove all verdancy and take a plant pot of the highest value still available and place it on the card. Next, check if your green thumbs exceed the maximum you can carry, which is 5. If so, discard down to 5. And then finally, refill the market back to full. And that is it for a turn. You're basically going to continue doing this until every single player in the game has completed their 5x3 grid that's having 15 cards in it, at which point you'll proceed to final scoring, and there are a number of ways that you're going to be gaining points in this game. Your scores will be based on completed plants, leftover verdancy tokens, the plant pots you placed on your cards, room bonuses for having the correct types of plants next to the correct types of rooms, the amount of unique furniture you collected, and bonus points for having 1 of each plant type and 1 of each room type. There is also an advanced mode that adds 3 public objectives that give you additional ways to score points. I personally only like to play that way. I think it adds a lot to the game, but if you're finding that for a first time playing or for certain people that you're introducing the game to, that it's just a little too complicated with them, it is just an advanced variant. You do not have to play with them. And basically that's the entire overview of Verdant. Obviously there are some intricacies here with, what the green thumb actions that you can actually do, for instance, are. All that stuff is stuff you can look up in the rulebook as well as on the Kickstarter campaign, but I won't go over all those details here. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of how Verdant plays. So for now, I'm going to pass it over to Carlo, and through the magic of cameras and editing and time travel, he's going to be actually coming to you from this exact same room that I'm sitting now. So take it away, Carlo, for our full thoughts.
Thank you, Dylan. And now, for those of you who don't know, I'm Carlo from All You Can Board, and I'm going to be doing our preview of Verdant. So I'm going to start with breaking down kind of what does the game feel like? What are some similar games? So this has some similarities to some other games from Flatout Games like Calico and Cascadia, where it does feel a lot like a spatial puzzle where you have a limited amount of spaces where you're trying to fit things in, and where things go next to other things is going to determine, your scoring conditions and that sort of thing. But there's going to be a lot of different ways to score in this, more similar to Cascadia than to Calico if we're comparing to some of those games. You're going to have, as Dylan mentioned, you're going to have that 5x3 grid that you end up having with your cards, but there's an aspect kind of if you played King Domino, where when you start laying down your dominoes, you don't know at the time, is that going to be in my top left corner at the end of the game? Is this going to be the middle or the right? You can start placing things on whatever side, and what ends up being in what corner or what's in the middle is only determined kind of at the end of the game once you've built out your whole tableau. So that's really interesting, and you're also, keep in mind that because you're going to have to be alternating plant, room, you can never have 2 of the same type of plant or same type of card in your tableau. You're going to have to decide too, because you're going to have this 5x3 grid, is your top row going to be room, plant, room, or is it going to be plant, room, plant? Because then you're going to either have your 4 corners are going to be plants or rooms. And then that's going to affect too how many rooms or plants you have in the center, which is going to, change where those adjacencies can score. So there's this whole spatial puzzle that seems like there's not a lot going on at first, but as you play more and more, you realize there's actually a lot more to consider. Also, something that you might be familiar with from previous games from Flatout, is they tend to have what I think of as a really good amount of randomness, because the randomness determines what tiles or what cards are going to be available throughout the game. And I know that I've heard some people complain about randomness in games like this in the past. Personally, I think that these games have an excellent amount of luck mitigation and ways to kind of play around that randomness. You have these, the green thumb tokens that Dylan mentioned before. You can use them to kind of manipulate the market and change out the tokens, or take a token with a different card that doesn't match. So there's little ways that you can choose. You have a limited supply of these green thumbs, but you have to choose when you're going to use them to mitigate your luck and when you're just going to say, that's fine, I won't use them and I'll just take the best of what's out there and what is available to me at this time. The main thing to keep in mind is that you're never going to be able to accomplish all your goals, so you really have to pick and choose where you're going to try and score your points and which categories you're going to go for. So now let's talk about the actual production, the artwork, the components, and that sort of thing. Keep in mind this is a prototype copy. This is on Kickstarter now, so the final components, there's a good chance they'll look very differently. But the artwork, the illustrations have been done by Beth Sobel, and then the graphic design itself has been done by Dylan Mangini. These two have both done a lot of work with Flatout Games before. As far as I know, Dylan Mangini does the graphic design for most, if not all, of their games. And then the illustrations here from Beth Sobel, just stunning. If you look at these, all the plant cards themselves are just beautifully drawn. There's so many unique cards in the game. You've got even different card backs. You've got these nice little, the Verdancy tokens are really nicely engraved. You've got your little cute, you've got little cats and dogs and birds and things like that on these components. So everything is very nice here. And another thing I want to point out is even the green thumbs. The game doesn't have people, right? It's cats and plants and all this stuff, but they've taken the time to make sure that, they're including these green thumbs, and you can see, they're including people with all different skin colors, and just, yeah, great to see. Overall, the production, I have zero complaints, but I am curious, of course, to see what kind of stuff might show up, either potentially, who knows, whether it be a stretch goal or something that's going to show up in the final version. But I think just the way it all looks, even the box cover, look at this box cover by Beth Sobel. Just beautiful. You got the little cat asleep on the chair and everything. It's just a real pleasure to look at, and even when you have your tableau out and you're looking at your plants and everything, it just looks really, really nice on the table. Now I want to talk about some of the biggest challenges of this game and what make it kind of another level of challenge or another level of complexity above some of the games that you've seen from these designers or this publishing team before. So there's a kind of a push your luck element a bit with these plants, because the plant cards all have a verdancy requirement, as Dylan mentioned before. So this one needs 9 verdancy total to get you your 11 points. So because these are tasks that have to be kind of fulfilled, and you're only going to get 15 turns throughout the game, you end up with a 15 card tableau, so I guess you get 13 turns because you start with 2 in your tableau right from the beginning. So over those 13 turns, you're having to choose when do you want to add plants, and the earlier you do, the higher, the more time you have to get that verdancy on them. And any plants that haven't been fully stocked with verdancy and haven't been potted by the end of the game, you don't actually score the number of points there. You get some leftover points, for all of your verdancy that's left over on uncompleted plants, but there is this really interesting timing element of which plants do you take, because you want to take the higher value ones that can score you more points, but only if you think you really have the time to get them completed. And that's going to happen a lot easier if you can get rooms that match them and things that actually add verdancy automatically, rather than having to use your, green thumbs to add verdancy. So that's something that is really challenging that I liked about this game. There's a kind of a race, right? The sooner you complete the plants and you pot them, you get those little pots that have the point values on them. If you want to race to get them done, sometimes you're going to have to use a couple of green thumbs or do something, maybe at a suboptimal order just to get that plant completed so that you can take that pot. Otherwise, you can worry about getting it completed later when you just place something next to it, but then, the higher point pots might be gone by then. The other thing that's pulling you in multiple directions is the scoring values, because there's diversity bonuses for having one of every color plant and also one of every color room, but you're incentivized to put similar colored plants next to a room. So let's say I have a dark blue room. If I have a dark blue plant on every side of it, I'm going to be scoring bonus points for all those. So the game is simultaneously telling you, hey, focus on 1 or 2 colors and surround them all, but at the same time, if you diversify a lot, you can get the diversification points. So there's all these conflicting scoring opportunities. And the other thing is, you can never, so I mentioned luck mitigation. In this game, you have certain things you can do with your green thumb tokens to change up what's available in the menu, but you can only ever wipe any number of tokens from the middle or choose take any token with any card rather than having to take the ones that are lined up. So you might notice there's never any way to change up which 4 rooms are in the market or which 4 plants are in the market. And that's what makes this game so challenging, is that you're going to have to take one of these 4 or one of these 4, and it's just a matter of which token is either most important to you, or when are you going to use green thumbs to wipe the market because you know that some of your opponents need those specific unique items for the scoring conditions at the end. So it feels like there's maybe even more to consider here than some of the past games I've played from Flatout, and I like that the green thumbs allow you to change the options not only for yourself, but also change them up to block your opponents and perhaps wipe tiles that they might have been looking at using on future turns. So what about player count and interaction and that sort of thing? Well, the game plays 1 to 5 players, so there is a solo mode in here, which I've not yet tried, and the solo mode, by all accounts, sounds like it'll play similarly to the regular game. You're going to be building your tableau in a similar way with your cards, and you're just trying to meet certain scoring goals, and the game is kind of automated in a way that keeps the market flowing for you, so probably similar if you've played the solo mode in either Calico or Cascadia, that sort of thing. I would say the sweet spot for this game is probably going to be somewhere around the 3-player mark. I think it's going to be really good regardless of player count. I think when you get to 5, as long as people aren't all playing for the first time, or maybe people are suffering from analysis paralysis too much, like maybe with 5 it might feel just a little long, but there is enough sort of thinking ahead that you can do when it's not your turn. I found we've played it already with 2 and with 3. We have not been able to try it with 4 or with 5. I would say probably we enjoyed it best with 3. With 2, it just becomes a little more that head-to-head where you can kind of really try and deny your one opponent those specific tokens they need. A bit more of a head-to-head matchup. 3 or 4 is probably going to be where it's best, but honestly, I think it's going to be a very good game at all player counts. I just think once you go past 3, adding a 4th or a 5th, I don't think is going to make the game any better. It might just, it's good that it accommodates more players, because everyone likes to be able to play games like this with 4 or with 5 when possible. So in terms of the overall value of the game, is it worth owning? Is it worth playing a bunch of times? Is it going to get old after a while? Honestly, I think there's going to be a lot of replay value here. It plays fairly quickly, but you're going to see different types of cards that come up every game. There's going to be different plants that you might not see. some games, the market might start with mostly low verdancy, or some there might be ones with high verdancy. You might see different combinations of tokens. Some games you might be able to get that full diversity bonus, or not diversity bonus, the item scoring bonus for the unique items. Other games that might be in lower demand, you might see more or fewer of these green little nurture items that allow you to kind of add more verdancy elsewhere. You know, and then the other thing is there's these kind of like goal cards that you can put in. There's one of each category. For example, this one's 2 points for each terracotta pot. So those are normally the pots at the end of the game that would give you no points. There's, 2 points for each completed plant with verdancy requirement of 7 or more. So right from the start of the game, you're going to start with 2 different plants every game, or 2 different cards, a plant in a room. What's on the board is going to be different. The goal cards are different. So I think game to game, it's going to play out very differently. And because of all the different scoring conditions, there's different things you can even try, right? Again, I mentioned you can try specializing in 1 or 2 colors, or just try and get some really high verdancy plants or whatnot. You can try to diversify more. I think there's going to be a lot of different paths to victory, similar to a lot of other games we've played from Flatout, and I personally look forward to exploring and seeing, what are all viable strategies and how you can plan differently from the start, and just kind of all the different paths to explore with the system it provides here. And that's going to do it for our preview of Verdant. We have really enjoyed playing this game. Thank you again to Flatout Games for sending us this copy to put together this preview content. We think it's a great game. We're really looking forward to the campaign as well as seeing the final product. What do you think of Verdant on first impressions? Do you have any questions about the game? Anything you'd like to know, please let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can subscribe to our channel if you like this video and you'd like to see more like this. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. And you sure about the plants? You sure I can kind of faces in here, yeah?
Oh yeah, you're good.
All right.